Hello, right, we're going to be looking at working in the style here of Lauren Marek. Now this is something that I use quite often in Year 10 photography and in Year 10 graphics, and at a more deeper level, you'd look at this artist and think about how they are generally about getting up close to humans, taking really macro shots of different parts of the body, and concentrating on textures within hair, within wrinkles, within hands, and creating a piece of work around that. However, what I tend to use it for with the Year 10s is just on a visual level of simply taking the idea of using a grid to show little different sections of your work. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. So creating a 3x3 grid, how to make one from scratch, how to measure it out really easily, really quickly, and getting your work in it. So let's move on. So I've got an example here that I've already started in Photoshop. So, and there is some work in there now. My graphics students will remember that a few weeks ago I showed them some examples from work from a fitness style portfolio, and these are what these images are for. Now, some of the images, actually the central image is much bigger. That's been shrank down a small section of it taken, and the images to the corners are actually from the same picture as well. Now, how do we create the grid that's present in these pictures, and how do we take out our sections of the images? Well, I'm going to run through all that now. So first things first is we're going to need a new document. So up at the top, File and New, and on the presets I always drop down to International Paper. Now at the minute I've got this as A4, and that's just because we're not going to print it out massive. We're probably going to print out however it comes out on an A4 piece of paper. That's perfectly fine for this exercise. However, of course, if you were going to do one that was due to be printed huge, then you'd make a much bigger document. So we're going to match the height and the width. So I'm just going to do 210 by 210 millimeters, or 21 centimeters by 21 centimeters. So we've got a nice equal grid. Well, a nice equal square rather. And how do you go about making that grid? Well, the first thing you're going to need to do is edit your grids, guides and slices. And so this is where you just get sort of almost turns your background into sort of lined paper. Now the lines don't come out on the image, but it allows you to use it as a grid. Or it allows you to set up a grid. So let's say if you wanted to have something that occurred repeatedly, that was visual, every sort of 10 centimeters on a piece of paper, then that's how you'd make it. But in this case we want something that is going to divide it so it's really nice and equal to make 9 squares, or a 3x3 grid that's as equal as possible. So from the top bar you're going to go to Edit, right to the bottom to select Preferences, and there we're going to have it to grid, Guides, Grid and Slices. So mine's already preset here, but I'll show you what you need to do. So I've not really bothered with guides or with smart guides here. I haven't changed anything about those. I've just gone to grid. I have gone to grid every 33.36%. So basically every third, and that will help you get it. So it's probably more likely going to be something completely different when you first log onto your computer, but you want to change it to 33.36%, and subdivisions I just changed to 1. And then you press OK. And then to show that on your screen, you hold Control and press the apostrophe key, and then it shows. So I've got a bit of a grid here. Now if I were to print this out now, it would just print out a blank piece of paper. These red lines do not appear. They are like they're just a guide. They're not actually a part of your image. So every time you press Control apostrophe, it's like flicking on a light switch, on and off. Okay, so let's get drawing on these then. Right, so how I make it, or this is my method at least, there might be an easier one out there. If you know it, please share it with me. This is just what I'm used to doing. So how I do this, is I select the line tool off the drop down from the shapes. I have it to currently fill black, stroke black, and I have my stroke to 10. And I'm going to draw that line. Now when I go to draw it, I can drag this out in any direction. However, as I pull down, if I hold the shift key, it will make sure I only can either draw a 0 degree line, a 45 degree line, or a 90 degree line. So I've drawn my 90-degree line, I'm going to let go, and that's currently set to a width of 1 pixel. I'm going to change that to 40 pixels and press enter, and I'll get a much thicker line. I'm going to use the move tool then, and the arrow keys, and I'm going to try and make that as central as I can to the red grid line. Right, next thing then, that's done. I'm now still selected on shape 1 on my layers table. I'm going to hold Control and tap J, which will duplicate that layer. I can then, as I'm still on the move tool, move that across and use my arrows again on my keyboard to try and make that as central as possible. Then I'm going to duplicate it another time. Now with this one, I'm going to bring this over to the end, but I'm still going to have it halfway on that line. And it's just so the picture's fitting it equal. If you want to put a thicker black border around the entire image afterwards, that's totally fine. And then I'm going to drag this one, once it's duplicated again, to the other side and do the same. So that's that part done. And then I'm going to highlight, holding shift, all of the layers and use Control E to duplicate them together. Now they're duplicated, and what I'm going to do next is they are merged, rather not duplicated, they'll merge together. And then now they're all merged together, so there's 4 lines of one shape. I'm going to do Control and J again, so I've got those 4 lines. I'm going to transform them now, so Control and T, and then up at the top bar here where the transform controls are, I'm just going to pop a 90 into the degree, and you can see it gives me, it's given me what I wanted straight away, so that's complete. And we have a grid. The only thing we have to do now is pop it together. So I'm going to hold Control while I've got the top layer selected, and then I'm going to do so now I've held Control, selected the other layer, I've got both vertical and horizontal lines selected. I'm going to hold Control and press E to merge those 2 layers together. The last thing I'm going to do is right click over that layer and masterize it. And now we can get rid of our grids and slices by doing Control and apostrophe. And now we have our grid. And if you unsee the background layer, you can see, of course, that this grid can float around. Well, the next thing we need to do is get our images. So I'm just going to open the images. So here I've just opened a shoe image. Again, not my shoe image, one I found offline. So you know that on this image you can, once it's open, you can grab it using the left click on the move tool, and whilst holding down that left click, drag it over to your desired document and pull the cursor down over it until you see the little plus with the cursor, and then let go and it will appear. Then what you can do is transform that however you want to see it. Now the first thing I would always do is move that underneath your grid layer, and even if you want to, you can just rename that grid layer to grid so it's easy to organise. So I might even rename this to red converse. And then I'm going to use Control T, transform that image out to however I want it, and I can sort of see where it might fall and interact in a grid and how I might want it to look. So I might want it to be even bigger than that. So let's just take this as an example of so let's say I want to keep this middle section here. Then what I would do is I'm going to select back onto the grid layer, and then from the different types of selection tool, I'm going to use Magic Wand selection tool, select inside the grid that I want, and then I'm going to move back onto the converse layers. Now there's a couple of different ways you can do this. I'll show you the easiest way. Is once I've got that over the converse layer and that selection's on there, I just hold Control and press J and it's duplicated. Now I can unsee the red converse layer and I can see what I've left behind in that section. The reason I've done it that way is so if you've got an image and you want to use more than one section of it, then I can go back to my red converse layer and begin to move that around and take a second section. So let's say I want to transform that a little bigger and I want to use the top corner of that converse, the very top of the shoe with the green. I could also, by the way, if I wanted to, flip this image around or try it from different angles. So for high, I'm going to put a minus in up on the transform and it splits the image perfectly for me. So if I want to, I could pop that in down here. accept, and then use the one tool again, go to the grid, go to the section I want to save, go to the red convert image, Control and J that section, and then unsee the rest of the image. Don't forget as well, in these sections you can also do some of the editing that we do on a day-to-day basis on like the adjustments panel. So for example, if I wanted to alter the red and the green on that shoe and express it in a different colour, I might use hue and saturation while selected on that layer. I'm just going to connect it using the little connection tool to that layer, and then I can change the hue and saturation. What's another popular converse as well? I'm going to have a purple converse instead on this one, and you can edit pictures in that way. You can use, for the graphic students that are doing this in the virtual classrooms at the minute, if you're in that situation, you can use a mixture of all your different pieces of work that you've done, plus some of your photography. And of course, our photography students use this purely with their photography, not with drone work. So that's how you would create it. That's how you would then slowly build and fill your grid. If you've got any questions, of course, do ask me. And that's how you would work.